Hello students, I am here to explain very important topic from the chapter Life Processes, which is the Human Digestive System. This topic is very important for exam purpose as the whole chapter is very important. Let's have a short PPT here to explain this topic in a while. Human digestive system explains about how we take in food and how we consume the nutrients present in the food. As we all know that there are 5 kinds of nutrients which are carbohydrate, protein, vitamins, minerals and fats which are absorbed by our body to lead a healthy life. These nutrients remain in the food but they need to be digested properly. For the process of digestion, we take the help of digestive system and thus we are able to absorb all the nutrients into its usable form. The digestive system helps us to digest the food entirely and absorb it, and finally we are able to take in nutrients in proper amount. So let's have a look on the digestive system of human beings. The digestive system of human starts with the structure that is mouth, which is also known as the buccal cavity, and ends up with the structure anus. You can see, dear students, there are different organs here present which have their own function to digest the food. The function of these each and every organ will be explained later on. Just have a look on the structure of the digestive system here present in the diagram. Now, let's have a look on the process of digestion in case of human beings. The process of digestion takes place, first of all, with the process of ingestion. Ingestion is simply the process of taking in food into the buccal cavity. We generally eat our food by our hands. The process of taking in solid food inside the mouth is called ingestion. We human beings are following holozoic nutrition. That's why we have the process of ingestion which is done in the mouth. Next is the process of digestion, which starts from the mouth itself and it ends up in the small intestine. Then the absorption takes place in the small intestine itself. From the small intestine, the absorbed food enters each and every part of the body, and finally it gets mixed up in each and every cell, which is called assimilation. Last step of the process of digestion is egestion, which is also very important because the undigested food is removed in this process. The organ involved in this process is the large intestine. So let's have a look on the diagram. The process of digestion takes place in the mouth first. Here in our mouth there are some glands. These glands are called salivary glands. There are a total 3 salivary glands present in our mouth. This salivary gland produces an enzyme called salivary amylase, which is present in the saliva, which is a liquid inside the mouth. The saliva has different function. First of all, it releases the salivary enzyme which is called salivary amylase or ptyalin. The function of salivary amylase is to digest carbohydrate into its smaller form. But you should remember that mouth is not only the only organ to digest the carbohydrate properly. The other steps of carbohydrate digestion also takes place in the small intestine. The small intestine is the location where carbohydrate gets digested totally. In the mouth, the partially digested carbohydrate then reaches the next part of the digestive system. The saliva is also a slippery liquid which helps the food to mix well and to be swallowed. The saliva is also a liquid which helps us to kill the bacteria or any other germs present in the food. Thus, the partially digested food now passes through the esophagus, which you can see is a long tube that enters our stomach. Stomach is the bag-like structure which is a reservoir of the food which we are eating. When we eat food, we chew the food properly with the help of the set of the teeth, and this partially digested food is then entered in the stomach. The stomach is the location where we find three important chemicals. Stomach contains an enzyme called pepsin. It contains hydrochloric acid as well as mucus. Hydrochloric acid is very acidic in nature. It has a high pH. The hydrochloric acid is produced by the cells of the stomach, that is the gastric gland. The pepsin is a enzyme which is released by an organ called pancreas. The pancreas is a structure which acts as both organs, that is the endocrine as well as the exocrine gland. Endocrine gland secretes hormone which we will study in other chapters, and it has an exocrine action also, that is it produces the enzyme. Pepsin is it is released from the pancreas organ and it is poured in the stomach so that it can work on the partially digested food. The pepsin gets mixed with the food particles and helps the protein to digest. The HCl has a very important role here. The HCl helps the pepsin to work because pepsin cannot work without the HCl. In the stomach, the presence of HCl helps the situation to be acidic in nature. The stomach content becomes acidic and thus pepsin can do its work. The mucus present in the food also helps the food to be well mixed and thus it reaches the next organ. The stomach is continued to the small intestine, which is divided into different parts. You can see here the duodenum, the jejunum, and finally it goes to the ileum. The duodenum is the structure which starts from the stomach. Duodenum is the site where complete digestion of all the food products takes place. For example, the partially digested carbohydrate and the partially digested protein from mouth and stomach simultaneously reaches the duodenum to be digested properly. Before that, first we need to be clear that there is an organ called liver which produces a chemical called bile. The bile is secreted from liver and it is stored in gallbladder. This gallbladder, whenever the bile pigment or the bile juices are required, supplies to the small intestine, and bile has an important function in the process of digestion. All of you know that fat molecules are very hard to digest because of their structure. The fat molecules are emulsified first, that is, they have a circular structure. Their structure is made linear by the help of gallbladder. The liver produces the bile and thus the bile is responsible to emulsify the fat and thus the fat is in the form of linear position which can be digested by the digestive enzymes. The smallest intestine contain several enzymes. Those can act on the food particles and can completely digest the food. For example, there are amylase, there are maltase, there are lipase, and finally the protein digesting trypsin, chymotrypsin, all those enzymes. These enzymes can digest the food and can make it in its simple form. The small intestine is the site for complete digestion of the food and thus we get glucose from carbohydrate, amino acids from protein, and from the fats we get glycerol and fatty acids. So all these smaller nutrients, they are absorbed by the small intestine now. the vitamins and minerals have smaller structures and thus they can be absorbed simply. So let's have a look how the digested food is absorbed. For absorption purpose, the small intestine have a very unique structure. Inside the small intestine, which is tubular in structure, inside the tube there are millions of tube-like structures called villi. You can see the villis are very minute structure present inside the inner wall of the small intestine. When we zoom them, we get the structure of villi which contains all the veins and arteries. That means inside the villis there are numerous veins and arteries, that is the blood is connected here. The arteries and veins collect the food particles and thus it is carried away by the flow of blood to different part of the body. The absorbed food particles are sent to the blood and thus the blood carries the food particles to each and every cell, which is known as absorption. Finally, the process of absorption is over. We have the last part of the digestive system, which is called the digestion. The process, as we know that the process of sending the food particles or the nutrients to the entire body part, after that the large intestine works here. Large intestine is connected with the small intestine. The totally undigested part removed by our body, because if they remain inside the body, they have no function and they will create a problem in the body. Large intestine is a place where absorption of huge amount of water takes place, because to remove these unwanted wastes from the food, we need water also to be mixed there in the process and to be removed from the body. So our large intestine helps us to absorb the water first of all from the surrounding, which is done by the process of osmosis, and the absorbed water mixes with the undigested food, and then the mixture of undigested food and the water is removed from our body with the help of rectum and anus. This way the process of digestion ends up as, because we can see that we are able to digest the food properly and we are able to absorb it and then send it to the different areas, that means each and every cell. Students, hope you have understood everything. So this process of digestion of food takes the help of different kinds of enzymes. Enzymes are nothing but they are biochemicals. We know that these enzymes are produced by different organs in our body. They are simply glands and organs also. So we have salivary gland which produces the salivary amylase. We have liver to produce bile, and pancreas. Pancreas is the site where maximum amount of enzymes are produced. For example, amylase, lipase, trypsin, and this is insulin. This insulin is a hormone which is used for some other purpose. So different enzymes and their functions are given. Amylase to break down carbohydrate into its smaller form. Then protease that helps to digest the protein and break them into its smaller form again, that is the peptides, and finally to the amino acids. And then lipase, that after the emulsification of fat which is done by the bile, the lipase works here to break down the fats. Pepsin is helpful for the digestion of peptide. And finally trypsin helps to digest after the action of pepsin. In the small intestine, lactase helps final digestion of carbohydrate after the digestion process is over in the mouth of the carbohydrate. And there is sucrase also, which also digests the partially digested carbohydrate, which is in the form of sucrose into simple sugar. When we talk about simple sugar, it is the glucose every time. And last, maltase. Maltase also works in the small intestine, which also totally it digests the carbohydrate, and finally it makes it its a smaller form, that is the glucose. So that's all for today's video. Thank you.